Are you constantly living with dysfunction in your life? If so, there's help. Neo Zoe, New Life Through Balanced Living, is a very unique holistic wellness company that's here to help you preserve a healthy balance and eliminate any dysfunction. We use an individual approach through nutrition, massage, and various other holistic practices. You can restore your optimal health and a healthy lifestyle. Visit us on the web at neozoe.com or call us at 732-713-0123. Welcome to the Health and Wellness Hour here on Studio Angels. That's coaradio.com. We're here again for our monthly show, so thank you so much for tuning in. And we'd love for you to call into our show, so I'll give the number right off the top of the hour at 609-241-7103. And how are you doing, Danny?
I'm okay.
You're having a little bit of allergies there, I see.
Yeah, they're killing me. Absolutely killing me. Do some holistic thing, will you? Oh, and before I leave, before I leave, I need you to like jam your thumb under my armpit because
I was
my neck
afraid what
hurts.
he was just going to say.
Like last night, I'm like, I need Mare to like jam her thumb under my armpit so that the tension in my neck goes away.
Oh.
Or do you just do that because
no, there's a
torture
purpose
me?
for it. If I wanted to torture you, I could do it better than that.
She learned that from the Iron Sheik.
Yes. And we have engineer Art here today too, right? Doing his thing. I guess. As I can see, he's right on cue. As always, he's just
It's not even plugged in.
You know what's funny? He makes sure we're all set up, but he forgets about himself.
I do.
Well, welcome.
Thank
And
you.
then we have our musical director, Chlanda.
That's George Harrison.
That's correct.
That's correct. You can name that
correct.
tune.
Hello.
Hello, how are you?
Actually, it's
I'm
the
good.
Beatles, but wasn't that George's riff?
Yeah.
Yeah, okay.
Yes.
Awesome.
And this song would be. Oh. Forget it.
Be incomplete. That's what
Wait a
that song will be. Oh. While my guitar gently weeps, of course.
Ah, there you go. Pretty good. I have no
doesn't
money to
sound-
give you for every tune that you're naming.
It doesn't
just so you
sound
know.
the same without the sitars, though.
Oh, there's no prize money? No, there's
That's correct.
Not right this second, there is.
Oh,
No, not at all.
no, we just lost those guests. So much for that $5,000 you were talking about, Chickalini.
We didn't get to that yet.
Oh, sorry.
Just kidding, just kidding. But we're all here because by popular demands, we have Allan Morelock
Whoa.
again. Yay, in the house. Thank God. Thank you for coming back and
Thank you.
joining
Thank
in the
you.
mayhem all over again.
Thank you. I like mayhem. I'm excited to be here.
You're excited?
We're
Yeah,
excited.
yeah.
That's good.
And he brought somebody with him who's quite special too. And you know why? You see these locks? He's responsible for them. His name is Robert Ciccolini. Yes.
Hey,
he's
Robert.
here.
She put you on blast, as
Yes,
my
I did.
coworker says.
Yes, I did.
Okay.
Because I like to pick on him. Because he picks on me.
See, you see these locks, Robert, right here? Yeah. Heredity's responsible for that right there.
Chia. I have not done that in a while. I've been really good.
I know.
See that
I'm just
no
kidding
hair?
with
There's
you.
5 women in my life. Is what
Well, I thought you were a successful businessman coming out on top. You know, that's what I thought.
Wow.
This is 3 daughters, a granddaughter, and a wife. See what happens to you?
Yeah.
Sounds like a song.
That really does sound like a song.
like a whiskey beer. What's that song?
Right? And one bourbon, one scotch, and one beer. Yeah, the old blues.
It
too.
That
sounds
is a
like,
good
sounds like a
topic.
sitcom.
It
That-
could be.
It could be a sitcom.
You know, he says it like it's a complaint, Alan. But somehow in your
Hey,
philosophy,
Art, could you
I
turn me
think
up? Could you turn
being
up my,
surrounded by that many women could be a good
number
thing for
one?
him.
No, definitely.
Hey,
Oh.
yo,
A
fantastic.
lot more fun than if it were the other way around.
Fantastic.
Did you hear that, Art?
No,
No.
You didn't hear that at
I
all.
was distracted.
No,
He
because
thinks
Chlanda was
Chlanda was
talking over
distracting
top
me.
of everything.
As always.
Our music director was out of control.
He's always like that little Johnny in a classroom. You know that one in the back? It's always causing mayhem.
tells a lot of jokes.
There's always one, right?
There's always one. That's him. No,
Yeah.
when we were saying that you're surrounded by women, I said that's a good thing. And Allan agrees.
Yeah, I'm not complaining.
And
You
what do you
too
base
much.
this on, Allan?
What?
Allan, what do you base this on?
Being
What
surrounded
do I
by
base
boys.
it on?
No.
Well, it's just the idea of filming all women. It's just, I think it's a funny idea. I would enjoy it.
Something about it.
Although sometimes while I'm at work during the day, I'll get on an elevator and there'll be like me and 3 or 4 women. I feel like the luckiest guy in the hospital.
Yeah,
See?
Oh, okay.
See?
yeah.
Mm.
Do you walk out of that elevator like, "Whew, that was a tough job," or
No, the women are doing that.
I wonder why they all huddle in one corner while I'm over up front. You know, I don't understand.
they're like, let that guy out at floor 2?
Yeah, one's got their hand on the phone. Another.
Emergency line.
Well, but you know what? My phrase is, and I really stand by this: behind every good man is a better woman.
I think you've got something there.
If that's
See,
the case,
I love it.
if that's the
Somebody
case, how
come
come
get
we
me.
aren't rich and famous by now?
What was that? I didn't hear what you said. Something about rich and famous. What?
I said, if that's the case, how come we are not rich and famous by now? If you're standing by this,
Because you don't want it bad enough.
That's the reason we're not rich and famous. There's a lot of problems.
Who said you're not rich and famous?
well, I could tell you. You want to see my bank account? I can tell you, I'm
But
not
you can
rich.
be rich in other
I
ways. It
can
does
be.
not have to be just
You
monetary.
can be. You can. We learned that the last time Allan was on.
Look it.
Yeah.
Look
Alan's
it.
saying what?
Look. Look how rich you are.
What? Oh, I thought someone called my name.
Well, that's rich.
This is the first time I saw Robert so quiet in my entire life. Now.
Actually, you know,
Don't
what's-
pick on him.
He's just warming up. Nice.
What's funny about that is, do you remember when we had Peaches on Rock on Radio,
Yes.
and she gave that little speech at the end,
Yes.
Yeah.
which was very poignant.
It was a brilliant speech.
And she said, you know, about success. Success is measured in different ways,
Right.
you know, and it's just like life. It's all perspective. You know, there are people who've come up to me. Oh man, you're doing so well for yourself. You've got this. You've got that. You talk to
'Cause
rock
it's
stars.
perception.
Because it's perception, and that's their perspective. You know, oh, you own a radio station. You hear that, Art? I own a radio station. I've gotten that more than once. That's the truth.
Well, you would get that from your Facebook page. You could almost
Assume that.
Assume that.
I blocked everybody on my Facebook. But
Got one.
you know, apparently so. You and no. So, you know, it's all perspective.
Yeah.
And then there are other people who view it as, you know, they trivialize certain things.
Mm-hmm.
You know, the struggle that we have for legitimacy on certain things. And then there are others who look at it and think, well, he's not too successful because he has to work a day job.
Right.
You know. So there's various ways to look at it.
It depends how you look at that day job,
Correct.
right?
Yes.
You're fortunate to have one,
Mm-hmm.
right?
Mm-hmm. I don't know how much longer, but
No, but
Go ahead.
that's
Because you'll
right.
be rich and famous.
correct.
All right. That's how I want to hear that.
Correct.
There's always a way.
That's right. I read something. Gary Ween wrote a book, and you guys can jump in here at any time. You know? Gary Ween wrote a book called Beyond the Palace. It's about the music history of Asbury Park and that area. And there was, I can't remember the exact quote, but it was, had something to the effect of, if you want, that came from, I think, I want to say either Bruce Springsteen or Southside Johnny, one of those guys. If you have a plan B, then you're not concentrating on plan A.
That's correct.
You know, I'm paraphrasing there, but and if you have something to fall back on, you're not going to go at the other thing as hard as, you know. Unfortunately, I also have bills to pay, so they need to know. They don't care what my plan B is.
No,
Well, then I have a question for you.
that's true.
Actually, it's going to be for Allan because I'm curious.
Yeah,
Because you're like the man of all the wisdom. That's what we found out last time.
apparently, and the women.
I love that. See,
Yeah.
he's already got brownie points over here.
Well, you know, he's honest.
Then does that mean all of you guys aren't honest?
No, we're
When you give me
dishonest.
a hard time week after
I
week?
didn't say anything. You know,
No.
what did
You
I-
got that smile, that certain look about you.
Excuse
I've
me.
always had this look.
Wait, did you say we give you a hard time?
I don't give you a hard time, do I? I'm the only estrogen in the room. I have to have some place to stand. See this? Well, okay. So with that,
So go ahead, ask Allan.
Well,
Okay,
yeah, I
you
do
ask
wanna
Allan
ask-
because I want to say something about Allan too. As soon,
Okay.
okay.
So for success, and anybody listening, just what he's saying, like plan A and plan B, and if you're concentrating and you have something to fall back on, you don't concentrate on your plan A as much. Do we put blocks, like on ourselves that maybe we're afraid of success or we feel like we can't achieve it, so we don't try to raise the bar for ourselves, or do we fall short? Like, do you have any thoughts on that at all?
Do we put blocks on our success?
Yeah, do we? Sorry to put you on the spot. Just thought I'd ask.
There's a lot of words in that sentence we'd have to break down, like success and blocks. And I think I would say it this way, that out of the complex definitions we have of ourselves, everything comes. And I think that a part of that definition we have of ourselves, there's part of the definition we have of self that comes from our heredity, part comes from our culture, part comes from our geography. And then there's it's a mysterious complex of everything we've experienced up until this moment in our lives is nuancing how we experience, how we interpret what we call our life. See, from my perspective, we don't experience what we call the world directly. I don't think anybody directly experiences reality. We could even ask the question, if you directly experience reality, what would you experience? And I don't think we can, I don't think we have a legitimate answer to that question yet. Because we're not experiencing life, we're always interpreting. There's a deep-seated conviction that we're experiencing reality, but we're really experiencing an interpretation of reality. That can be experienced directly, and it's also validated with research. There's a neuroscience, his name is Beau Lotto, B-E-A-U, last name Lotto, L-O-T-T-O. I recently read a great book by Beau Lotto. It's called Deviate, D-E-V-I-A-T-E. I recommend the book. And he says, from the standpoint of a neuroscience, he says that of the information we call perception, the percentage of what we call perception that comes through the eyes is 10%. 90%, the brain makes it up. 90% of what we perceive, according to neuroscience, is generated by the brain. So data comes in through the eyes, ears, and so on, but let's talk primarily about the eyes. So what's coming in is data. And then the brain, that data goes through the eye, sets up an electrochemical impulse, goes through the brain. The brain runs an algorithm, a very, very sophisticated, rapid algorithm, and derives an experience, derives an interpretation of experience. So, because everything is a secondary experience. So the light comes out of the bulb, goes to the wall or the microphone or the whatever that thing over there is that Art's controlling. Then that light takes some time to get to the eye. Then
That would be the Girl
algorithm,
Scout
and
cookies.
Then we derive an interpretation, and we call it an experience, which is based on the brain phenomena. But the basis of the brain, the brain has evolved or developed over millions of, at least thousands of years, for one primary purpose, which is to keep us safe. And one of the functions of the brain is called, one of the default settings of the brain, what is that called? Confirmation bias. So confirmation bias means the algorithms of the brain are constantly looking to confirm what we already believe to be true. If you look at that, for example, in terms of political positions, pretty much any position that someone has, the brain is looking to confirm what we already think, what we already believe, which gives us a feeling of safety. One of the researchers actually found something I read this and was just, my mind was blown by it. when you have a situation which tends to show contrary evidence to what you already have developed as a belief, political or otherwise, a belief that you kind of think is true, you've identified with it. When evidence comes in that's contrary to that, it creates a dilemma in the brain. And the brain actually then goes so far as to generate a lie. But when the brain generates that lie, which agrees with your previous belief system, a chemical gets released in the brain, which is equal in addictive power to cocaine. And then you get that rush of good feeling, and you say, see, I was right. So it's a deeply trained conviction so that we feel safe in the world.
Right.
Now, if we
Is that
are
dopamine?
living- what's that?
Is that dopamine?
Of the four main ones, I believe it is dopamine. I don't remember that exactly which one it is. Of the four, dopamine, serotonin, what is it, oxy something, oxy, whatever, and then the fourth one is the one the athletes get. You know, the kind of rush.
Adrenaline.
Endorphins. It comes with
Endorphins.
adrenaline and all that.
Mhm.
Those are the four main feel-good chemicals. So if we are being driven, a lot of people are being driven unconsciously to kind of achieve something in the outer world in order to activate those chemicals in the brain. So if we're measuring success by that formula, something's off about that, in my opinion. Something is being overlooked, which I would say, to me, success would mean being able to regulate a sense of well-being, irregardless of circumstances. When you find a person who can regulate your sense of well-being based on the fact that they exist and nothing more than that, when they can then regulate their sense of well-being, then that to me would be success. It has nothing to do with money, has nothing to do with circumstances. And I think that when a person becomes, I would say it this way, as a person becomes more adept at that, circumstances will arrange themselves to reflect that sense of well-being that you've become grounded in. So does that answer the
That's-
question?
yeah,
Well,
that's
then
very
I would
interesting.
actually then I would say
Mm-hmm.
that he's right.
Yes.
I am successful.
That's what I'm
I
saying.
got confirmation bias here.
Yes. Yes. No. Because I mean,
Like, if you feel that you are, like, because he feels that he's successful.
no. I was feeling that I wasn't, but
Oh,
Well,
if you go by what Allan says, then actually I am,
Right.
because I have a control over the situation, and I don't worry about what I can't control. And I mean,
And sometimes when you give up control, you gain control.
yeah, and sometimes
For like those type A personalities, sometimes you just, how if somebody
sometimes
gives,
silence speaks volumes.
oh, absolutely.
Okay then. Right. I've
Guess
been
I'm not talking
validated,
to you
Art. I can go now.
My work
to
is
you
done
anymore.
here.
I'm just kidding. If you're just tuning in, this is the Health and Wellness Hour on COARadio.com, and we'd love to hear from you. So if you'd like to call us and join the fun and win some prizes, just for calling in, and you could speak to our special guests, Allan Morelock and Robert Ciccolini, if you have any questions. And that number is 609-241-7103. And
that was an amazing answer.
it was an amazing
I mean,
answer.
you blow my mind all the time.
And you know what's
I found the first time before we met, I saw something on YouTube because I just wanted to investigate, and it was the interview with some woman in Florida about fairness. It was amazing. That's something. But what I wanted to talk about just now was when Allan came here today, started talking about property. There's this over 55 place that has no joy in it. And he mentioned to me about the sound of playgrounds were so beautiful, just the bliss, because we heard some kids laughing in this next room. And it was a beautiful sound how he wanted to make even a video of different playgrounds around the world, just as a beautiful thing. And that's just a beautiful thought. That was wonderful. So
It's a thought I've held for a number of years. I haven't taken any action. I just hold the thought and intend that someday somebody that has the resources to do it will pick up the thought, the vibration of the thought.
yeah.
Which would be a collection of videos, mostly the sound, in conjunction with whatever video would fit the, choreographed well with it. But a recording of playgrounds all over the world, all languages, all culture, and combining with music and video.
Because you'd mentioned that sound is a universal.
Yeah, has its own language.
Yeah, man.
It's a universal language, the joy of and the play of children. It's fantastic.
Somebody said one time,
it's
if you
amazing.
see two little kids in a sandbox, let's say of two
Yeah.
different races and nationalities,
Yeah.
okay, and one picks up a truck and hits the other one in the head, the other one's going to cry, run to their mother or father, and then come back and start playing with that same
Exactly,
kid
yeah.
again. They have short memories like that. Then there's a forgiveness that goes on there. I think it's only as we get older and we get jaded by our environment and whatever lessons. I'm a firm believer children learn what they live. So as you grow up, things are instilled in you, and your view of reality is far different from somebody else. I actually have this thing here, Allan, that was sent to me. It says that the most powerful force in the human psyche is how we describe ourselves to ourselves. Whatever follows I am is how you define yourself. Who's giving you labels? Rewrite it, reprogram it. The words that follow I am follow you, the power of your identity.
Yeah.
So, and then I also got this video about a guy who had this father, and because it was sent to me because it hit home, it hit home with me, and the kid desperately wanted approval from his father, and his father never had
Yeah.
time for him.
Yeah.
Do you know how hard I have to work, he says in the video, to put food on the table in this house? I have no time to play. Go out and do your chores.
Yeah.
So the kid figured the harder he worked, he'd finally get praise from his father. And it goes on and on. He says on his deathbed, he asked his father, he said, Dad, before you die, is there anything that I did to make you proud as a son? Can you just tell me one thing? And his father looked at him and said, no. And he returned home, and his marriage failed and his job failed. So he decided to start selling real estate, and he went in with a bad attitude, and his mentor came in and basically reprogrammed him. You have to believe that you are going to be the best real estate agent in the tri-state area. You have to believe that. So I am. And now he's a multimillionaire.
Yeah. Yeah.
By just changing his own perspective and along those lines. So.
Well, your subconscious mind believes everything that you say. And if you put it out in existence, it's going to take it in and you start believing. Your body will believe everything you say.
Abracadabra.
Correct.
Yes.
Abracadabra. You know about abracadabra, right?
Well, I know it's magic.
It's also a
But
Steve
literally,
Miller song.
there's a guy, there's a what did I say, a podcast or a YouTube video, something about the guy's talking about this abracadabra. And that's literally what it means is, as you say, so it shall be. Abra, I guess, has to do with speech, and
Okay.
cadabra has to do with manifestation. So your speech does tend to manifest. There's other pieces of that whole conversation that I find really fascinating, because sometimes what you're talking about works well for some people. Maybe a lot of times for a lot of people. I don't think it works all the time for all people, because there's other forces that are deep in the psyche that are at play. And I think sometimes we achieve things on top of that kind of subconscious or unconscious layer of what I call thought structures. So to me, a thought structure, I use the word thought structure because it's a little more shall we say, descriptive than simply saying belief. Because to me, a thought structure has three components. One is the words, one is the emotional content, and the third part, which is often overlooked, I think, is where it's held in the body. Emotion is held in the body. As far as I can tell, any and all emotion is stored in the body. When it's an emotion that is driving a thought structure to cause us to behave or interpret life in suboptimal ways. And it has a lot to do with what you're referring to, as far as I can tell, with this I am matrix. So the emotionality, I think the biggest emotional drives that are suboptimal originate at times when we did not feel safe, especially as small children. Because the way a child forms in its first few years tends to be quite a dominant feature throughout their life. So you could have someone like this gentleman you were talking about. His father did not give him approval when he was a child, and he lives his whole life. He's 80 years old, he's still looking for that approval, oftentimes unconsciously. So the work that I do with people individually is I've developed the skill. It's always a work in progress, to be able to go into the thought structures, to enter the domain of the thought structure and rewire it. Now the reason that this I am, the affirmation thing sometimes does not work, because these thought structures that are anchored emotionally in the body, it's an idea, a thought that's anchored emotionally in the body. The reason they're very difficult to get inside of is because they have become the equivalent of a survival instinct. See, your body has a certain amount, your body is wired for survival. We were talking about that with the brain before. The brain is kind of engineered over millennia to keep us safe, to protect our body. And that mechanism of keeping the body safe has its built-in methodology for completing its circuitry. You know, if you see like a lot of deer at my house, as most people experience. So the deer is there eating, he looks up and he looks around to see if there's any danger. Now if there's a danger, the deer senses a danger either by sight or smell, takes off running. So his body responds to the fear request. Whereas we live in the world where we experience all kinds of fears, but we can't do anything. You go into your office to work and the boss yells at you, and your body's being flooded with adrenaline, and you're forced to just sit there until you're driving home in the evening in the traffic and somebody cuts in front of you. No big deal, but you explode with anger because that chemical is backed up, and the body needs to express it. But here's what complicates it. We have taken on a conceptual identity, going back to the I am equation. We have taken on a conceptual identity. Most of the ideas that we have about ourselves are primarily conceptual. Now there's some, we talked about this before, about race, for example. The difference, genealogically, the difference between races is minuscule. Even the difference, even at the gene level, I think the difference between the human and the higher apes is like, what, less than 1% or 1 3/4%? It's a very small percentage. So the difference between humans genealogically is almost insignificant, but we turn it into a concept and we identify with the concept, and now that identity with the concept has taken on the status of survival at all cost. So that's why when we get insulted through something that all it's being insulted, all it's being attacked is our conceptual identity, but the mechanism that kicks in is a survival instinct, and it says you must survive at all costs. So you have people going to war over some concept, willing to kill each other because of a concept. I don't think bears or dogs would do that. No animal would do that.
Right.
Because that power, the power of the survival instinct has integrated so profoundly into the conceptual matrix of identity, we do insane things as human beings. So the trick is to be able to distinguish between my conceptual identity and my original nature, to be able to tease apart my conceptual identity. We still need a conceptual identity. If you go to
Right.
work and the guy says, George, you're getting a raise, you need to be, well, yeah, I'm George. This is, thank you. Or if you get a phone call and it says, is Sam there? You need to be able to answer the call and say, yeah, I'm here. So we need the conceptual identity. But there's something bigger, which is, we could say, what we truly are, what we originally are, to be able to bring that on board and be able to derive a sense of well-being from having an experiential recognition of what we are prior to or along with conceptual identity. Then we can begin to shift the power that causes us to be driven to crazy actions to defend our conceptual identity.
Wow. Yes. How can we scrape all that stuff away to get back to?
Well, I would say the first step is see the value of it and develop a clear intention. And once you're clear that there's value in it, and you're certain that that's an intention for you that's important, and you give value to it, out of that intention you'll begin to discover ways. You'll suddenly find there. It's like I never paid much attention to cars, and one fine day I decided I needed a new car. Once I decided what car I wanted, then suddenly those cars showed up everywhere. So out of your intention, you'll begin to recognize ways and means to fulfill that intention. To me, the intention is like your GPS. So you get in your car, and you look at the GPS, and you say, oh, I'm going to 125 North Main Street. Where's this Heights town? Put that in the GPS, and then you relax. You just, the GPS takes over, and it tells you where to turn, when to turn. If you have a good GPS, which mine sometimes works, it shows you where there's roadblocks ahead and gives you an alternate route. So every human has a built-in GPS. And for the sake of brevity, I'm going to call it God's positioning system. I just made that up. I'm sure other people use it too. But then, so we develop the intention. We're clear about the intention. Means we putting it in the GPS. The next stage is being able to discern the voice of the GPS. Now, when you buy a GPS, it's pretty easy. You know, my GPS always has the same voice, except when Robert's in the car with me. Then the voice disguises itself.
Into Robert. Really turns into Robert.
Turn to Starbucks.
Hey, still
But,
We have to pick on them.
but this is the art, and no offense to you, Art, but this is the art of developing intuition. It's through intuition that we learn to hear, to discern the voice of the GPS, the guidance system. Because that guidance can come as an inner voice. It can come as suddenly, let me think of something that's happened in my life. Okay, crows. One day, crows started showing up in my life. We never have crows come to my house. But all of a sudden, one time, crows started showing up. And they showed up consistently and persistently. And I was like, something's happening with crows. There's some guidance here for me. I just knew it, like kind of in my gut, kind of intuitively I knew it. And we had to make a trip out to where we were going, Western Maryland, to do a teaching event. And we're driving, and my gas tank's getting low. I pull over. As soon as I pulled into the gas station, I had to get out and use the bathroom. I parked. As soon as I stepped out of the car, a big crow came and landed on top of the telephone pole right next to my car. And I'm like, all right, these crows are on to me. Following me. This is something here. Then we go, and we were going to stay in this little, beautiful little ancient hotel building right next to the river, and I wake up in the morning, I can look out to the river. So next morning, daylight, I woke up, looked out the window, what's there? A mother crow with a child, and they were playing right outside my window, first thing in daylight. And I'm like, okay, I have to really look. What is the message the crows are bringing me? And the whole part of my understanding came out of that, what the crows were teaching me. So that comes from the intention. You set the intention, you're clear about the intention, and then you just learn to pay attention. And once something catches your attention, look more deeply into that. To me, it's just like, know what your intention is. Know, and if you don't have that trust, that faith, that confidence yet, it may require some time to cultivate it. Pay attention to synchronicities. And once something happens that catches your attention, just go more deeply into it. Pay more attention to it. Give it more attention, and explore. What's the message here? What's the meaning of this? Why is this happening? So that's the way of developing. So you're developing two things: your ability to kind of take charge of the direction your life is going in through your intention. And we talked before the other time about the distinction of intention and willpower. So here you're developing your ability to have intention and clarity in the direction you want to move, and you're also developing faith in something bigger than your, what we call the left brain, your linear thinking mind. As you develop that and you become more in tune with this intuitive capacity to discern, then you'll be able to make leaps that you could not make logically. You need that intuitive power. And all the great thinkers spoke about this, and maybe not the same way I do, but in some way that's certainly coherent with what I'm talking about. Einstein, he spoke about it in his own way, same kind of thing.
Well, I have an intention. Hold that thought. And if you're just tuning into the Health and Wellness Hour, you can call us at 609-241-7103 and be a part of the show. No question will go unanswered. We will do the best we can. And don't be afraid to call. Join us. We don't bite, right? See, they're handing out Girl Scout cookies.
I'm feeding our guests.
I see. Nice and healthy.
Don't feed the guests. You read the sign.
But we also have
Feed the music director.
people that sponsor our show. So let's go through our sponsors real quick. We do have City of Angels, Addiction and Recovery, right? We also have Recovery Spot in New York City. And we have Neo Zoe Health and Wellness in Cranford, New Jersey with me. Right? Look how he says that. Who else do we have?
For this show?
Yeah.
That's it.
I know that's it. See, he passed the test. You're taking your ginkgo.
Somebody. Oh no, that was rock already.
Eileen Sullivan.
Well, Eileen Sullivan should be on every show. That woman is amazing.
These are terrific.
Absolutely. The Thin Mints.
These are Thin Mints.
I hope they save the host some because she loves them.
The host better jump in pretty quick.
Well, see?
That's why you have a co-host,
Yeah.
so
So,
that you can get distracted and just say, "Take over,"
I'm still working on the peanut
right,
butter
host?
chocolate from
till you get your
Sunday.
mints.
my mints. Well, that's okay. Let's hope that they'll be gentlemen and save me some. No, it's not going to happen?
I don't know.
Hey, I want to tell you something. I'm very proud of you.
Why is that?
Well, when we were here on Sunday for your Rock On Radio show, Danny, we've had this conversation before on health and wellness where you were taking accountability and going to try with diet and exercise to change your lifestyle, right? And you've been doing really good because last Sunday, Danny here was eating a salad when we came in.
Yeah.
And today, Girl Scout cookies.
Then he had 3 chocolate bars.
No, he didn't. Actually, I think you did, Art. And I actually have to defend
Wow.
Danny on this, that he took one and he didn't even eat it while you were here.
I still have that chocolate bar home, and there's like all but 2 rows left.
I saved this one, but it's gone now.
But that's what I'm saying. So, and then you sent me a picture of you when you were done on your treadmill. I think it was a treadmill.
That's right.
And you showed me your results, so you are doing it. And I saw you in the mirror, so then I knew you were on the treadmill. I don't know if it's somebody else's results, and you just put yourself there to send me the picture. But judging by,
He photoshopped that treadmill.
well, no, there was a mirror in the picture,
Oh.
so I saw you in the mirror.
I'm just saying.
Just so you know, I did look at it that closely.
We're proud of you. No, we really
But
are.
all fooling aside, I'm really proud of you, for accountability and sticking to your word and trying, and every little bit helps. And I really want to say, I know that I pick on you in fun, we all do for each other, but I'm really sincerely proud of you. And he had made that announcement on this show, and I want to commend you.
Wow.
That's right. Why,
Stick to
thank
that
you very
diet
much.
So I can have your share.
Well, Art's another case that if you tell on his doctors you were threatening that, it's not working.
Obviously.
Well, lifestyle changes, it's everything, right? Robert and I spoke about this. We all know about lifestyle changes.
Right.
And don't look at me. All of a sudden, everyone's looking at me like I got something to say beyond that. No, but lifestyle changes are very important.
You've made lifestyle
I
changes.
have. Okay, thank you.
See, I'm acknowledging them. You've made some lifestyle changes.
Yes, being a musician and stuff like that, I just don't drink anymore and do anything crazy anymore.
It's okay. I don't drink any less.
No, I don't. It's been over a year for me, and I feel way better. And Art and I and the whole crew here have discussed about being enabled as a musician. When you play a bar, when you play stuff, there's always stuff floating around that you get. Well, I don't do that anymore. I just completely.
What made you make the lifestyle change?
I got sick.
That's what it took.
Yeah, that's
Step towards death. I'll do that. No.
That's what it took. That's what it took. I got pretty sick, and I came out of it, and I was so thankful to come out of it feeling healthy. Why would I want to poison myself with anything? So I said, you know what? I went through this process. I feel healthy, and I'm going to stay healthy. So that's what I did. And why poison myself with any kind of alcohol or anything crazy? Why?
Well, did you ever have any temptations, like you felt like you wanted to go
Of course.
back? And how did you overcome that?
I just
for
don't
you?
do it. I'm a cold turkey guy. I'm cold turkey. I don't. If I wean off something, it's not going to happen. I'm all in or I'm not in.
Right.
That's just the way that I am. I can't speak for everybody, but yeah, I just say nope, not going to partake. No peer pressure, nothing makes me indulge in anything. Do I practice guitar more? Yes. Am I more successful since I'm not numbing myself out? Yes. Are the gigs beginning to come because my intentions on getting the shows and stuff? They're coming to me out of nowhere. Why? I can't explain that, but they are. And
Because you're not forgetting to return the emails anymore.
it's correct. That's one. That's one reason.
That you're doing things to make himself successful. And I am going to say this, and this goes for anybody. When you're making a lifestyle change, beside yourself and depending on yourself, really learn to surround yourself with like-minded people and put your intention. Let somebody know your intentions of what you want to change in your lifestyle so they can help encourage you. We all have a moment or a good day or a bad day where, we're fine one day and we're all up and something might happen. And feel really down, that you want to be able to call like on a buddy system, if you will, to say, hey, I need to reach out. I need some help. I need some support some way, somehow, or let me just talk about it. You don't even have to say anything. I just need to vent, get the emotions out, like what you were saying. Because if we don't fix what's kind of going on here, we manifest it to ourselves. So, I mean, for you, Ryche, you did a lifestyle change. Your scare was your scare. It's probably one of the biggest scares anybody can get.
No, but the scare happened, and I came out of it feeling better, But it was still my choice. Whether am I going to drink? Am I going to do any sort of really junky things, or am I going to watch my weight? Am I going to exercise? Am I going to not? And I made that decision because I enjoy how life feels, and I did not want to put myself in any sort of poisonous trap again.
Well, good for you.
Oh, I have a question for Allan again about the intention and stuff. What about imagination? Because I always, I kind of feel like I'm out there playing, and for some reason things come to me. Like
You have a vivid
and I get that
imagination.
feeling kind of before it happens, and then I get that feeling again.
Yeah, well, I think that the emotion is what drives that creative capacity as far as manifesting something like getting the gigs you want. So it's the emotional component along with the imagination.
Okay.
I saw a research project that was done, and I read these things and I don't really do the research to see if they're how true they are, but it sounded true. So the research project was this: they had there was three control groups. One group holds a vial. This is a vial containing DNA. They're testing to see, can we affect matter with their thoughts. So one of the groups in the three held the vial of DNA and generated a higher emotional vibration. The easy way to generate a higher quality of emotional vibration is gratitude, just to be grateful. In fact, as soon as you start to, as soon as you intend to experience gratitude, your brain will start to generate supportive chemicals in the brain. So one group is just holding the vial with thought or with emotion. The second group is holding the vial with thought. So you've got one group with a higher emotion, one group with a higher quality thought. Of those two groups, there was no change in the DNA. Third group held the vial with a higher emotion and a clear intention, changed the DNA structure up to 25%.
Wow.
So it's just indicating what I think we sort of know, but we need to develop clarity about it. It requires a clear thought with a powerful emotion, because that's how we generated the original thought structures that organize our life experience. Only we did that unconsciously. As a child, I believe one of the things a child needs, a primary need of a child is to feel safe. A child is a vulnerable being, can't take care of himself, can't feed himself. When we're really young, we can't do anything for ourselves. We're completely dependent on the adult caregivers. And when those caregivers, knowingly or unknowingly, fail to give us that sense of safety, then the child has to find some way to resource themselves to generate a sense of safety. And it's usually done not very well when the child is kind of forced to generate their own sense of safety. And they may do it through avoidance, through lying, through various processes. And somehow out of that, they come out with feeling, oh, I survived that difficulty.
Right.
So that becomes a survival instinct. And as the conceptual paradigm of identity starts to develop later on, oh, I'm this religion, I'm that race, I'm, the whole matrix of concept starts to come along with the incumbent identity, then that's how it gets sort of set in concrete, that this is how I generate a sense of safety for my conceptual identity, and how then we're driven to do that unconsciously. So it goes back to what we were talking about before, which is sabotaging ourselves.
Right.
We tend to do that because the emotion, that emotional that thought structure is held emotionally in our body and will continue to operate until it's been either released or restructured. See, I like to work with it in both ways. One is sometimes it can just literally be released, and sometimes we can restructure it and use the same energy that's there. Because what's there? There's two components of everything that runs us, everything that organizes our experience in the subconscious mind. There's two components of it. One is energy and one is consciousness. Energy and consciousness. Those are the two fundamental components of all of it. So when we release an emotion that's been organizing us and running us unconsciously, we have that available energy and attention, then we rewrite what we want it to look like, what the outcome we want out of that energy and awareness. Then it can, that's how we begin to steer towards a more optimal life. Rather than trying to combat the circumstances in order to achieve that sense of well-being. What I'm saying is go directly through this process of releasing the emotion, and Maryann does some work, I'm sure, that helps people release emotions. Find ways to work with the emotions so that they have less grip on us. And then with that freed up energy and attention, then rewrite your destiny through the power of intention and using affirmations, but the affirmation should have emotion, like you're talking about. You imagine having the egg in front of a group of people, and you feel the joy of that. Feel, so it's that feeling.
Yeah, it's a feeling.
They've actually found that people who practice, they started, I think, study athletes who had some injury and they couldn't perform. So if they simply imagine themselves performing and spend the same amount of time as the guys who actually practice, the ones who were only doing it in imagination had, I think, about 75% as much progress as the ones who are actually doing it physically.
Wow.
Of course, the body has to get engaged and catch up somewhat in terms of muscle mass and coordination and all that.
Wow.
Yeah, it's beautiful stuff to understand.
Yeah. Instead of just going in the physical, like head on to whatever, it's amazing.
Yeah. And I think most of our, unless we have this kind of understanding or something that's equally valid or even better, we tend to think if I can just arrange the circumstances, then my life will work out. Then I'll be happy. I remember one of the first real jobs I had, and there was another. I was working with technicians, and one of the technicians was saying, "If I only get the right job, then I'll be happy." See that kind of carrot thing.
Yes.
That's always going to be just out of reach because you're looking for circumstances to produce your happiness and your sense of well-being. It's just the other way around. Once you start to generate that inner sense of well-being and happiness, circumstances are going to arrange themselves. They kind of have to arrange themselves to reflect what's going on within.
That's wonderful. Yeah. Wow.
Because it changes your energy structure, correct? So you for a better word, but attract those types of things to you by changing from the inside out.
Yeah. So when you have structures, thought structures within your system, held in your body, most of the time when I work with people, we can find where in the body is it located. There's actually usually a specific place in the body where the emotional quality, the emotional impact is stored. It's most of the time it's in the torso area. It can be anywhere, but most of it's stored in the torso area, particularly around the diaphragm, the gut. There's a lot of wisdom. There's a lot of wisdom in the old slang, like he ain't got no guts. Remember that one from the old Western movies?
Right.
He ain't got no guts means in his guts he has stored these structures that keep him in fear, that allow fear to organize his experience.
Wow.
So what we do is actually go in there and release those structures, release the impact of those structures.
Wow, it's amazing.
So there's different ways to do it. One is to find those three legs, those three components, like where is it in the body, what is the content, and what is the emotion.
And how do you do that?
Well, the way I do it, which is, I don't know how unique it is, it's just something I developed over the years, is to work with someone one-on-one. And it has to be kind of an intimate setting because we go into the emotion. So the reason it's a little difficult sometimes to go into the emotion is because we were trained or developed this habit very early on of not fully engaged in the emotion. See, when I was a child, and God bless my father, I love him, but if I cried as a child, I got beat. It was not a spanking. I'm talking about some serious leather.
Right.
So I had to learn not to cry,
Wow.
which meant, when I needed to cry, I went to the barn, I went to the woods, where my emotion, the trees didn't have a problem with me crying.
Right.
Never had a tree complain so far. So you know what I mean? So we develop these survival methods, which are there that they've actually come into our system for the purpose of keeping us in well-being, for the purpose of keeping us safe. But then we build them up with this presumption that it's going to keep us safe. What happens is then they become prison walls that keep us limited to what we believe to already be true, which is not always a very accurate belief structure. So the way I work with it personally, it depends on the person because I work differently with each person, but help the person to feel safe to actually enter the emotion. See, normally when an emotion comes, what happens is we go into the mind. We go into the mind to try to figure it out, understand it, avoid it, escape it, deny it, explain it. And what does the mind do? It only has two directions. One is the past, one is the future. Anything but now. The mind will go anywhere but now if you rely on the mind to produce a sense of safety when you have a difficult emotion. So to be able to sit with someone, I'm not a therapist, I'm not a licensed therapist, I'm not a trained therapist, I don't presume to be, but I can sit with someone and hold them in such a way they're able to feel the emotion, and I will direct them very, shall we say, gently and innocently encourage them to come back to how the emotion feels, which prevents going into the mind. And once the person feels the emotion a little more directly, a little more honestly, a little more authentically. The next thing is to find out where in the body, what's going on in the body. Once you locate where that's held in the body, then you can shift from the emotion to the sensation. And once you shift to the sensation in the body, which most of the time, if you have an emotion, you can go directly to that sensation, what's happening in the body. Once you find the sensation in the body, now you have found where it's stored in the body.
Right.
The next step is very simple, not always so easy to do, but it's actually very simple, which is just pay attention to the sensation. What you're then doing is restoring the dignity of the child, which was violated when they were really small. Because now you're just paying attention. What the child needed and wanted, I think most of the time unknowingly, was just somebody to give them attention. You know, one of my daughters has 4 children. I walk in the house and imagine 4 little kids running to me, wanting, look at this, watch me do this. You know, a child wants attention. Why? Because attention is the movement of those 2 fundamental building blocks of everything in their psyche, energy and awareness. Attention directs the flow of energy and awareness. So now you have energy and awareness flowing into where that thought structure is held in your body. Once it starts to receive the energy and awareness, which is what it's made of, it's like watering a plant or giving sunshine to a plant that's been in the dark. It will start to develop its own natural way. It will grow and develop in its own natural way. Then once we have movement, now we're actually inside. We've kind of hacked into it. And then from there, we can using through the doorway of imagination. Here's where imagination actually plays an important role. The imagination is a doorway into intuition. Through imagination, we tap into intuition, and intuition, through that, we can find anything. The power of intuition can reveal anything. Because now we're tapping into a far greater field of intelligence. Now this is what deep. This can be very deep, and this can actually go back generations. I had a student once I was working with who, I had to be careful here because I don't want to violate any kind of confidence with this man. And I know he's willing for me. He's open to my sharing this. I'm not going to mention his name, and nobody would know him anyhow. But we found that he constantly constrained himself, and we didn't know why. What we were able to do is to track back, I think it was 2 or 3 generations. One of his, I think it was his great-grandfather, he had never met the man. But the great-grandfather, had punished one of the children so severely the child died. And that energy was still stuck in my student's body, and we're still putting a blanket on his creative potential. And we opened that up and cleared it. And, well, let me just say, he's in med school right now.
Wow.
He's doing great.
Fantastic.
Yeah. Wow.
So you always can heal and,
Yeah.
Even from childhood, because a lot of things do stem from childhood, and how we're raised. And, we're very quick sometimes to blame our parents and all, but they learned what they learned from their parents and so on and so on. So they did the best job that they thought they were doing, but then I think there comes a time where we have to look within ourselves to recognize just what you're saying, recognize something's going awry.
It's definitely not about blame.
That's exactly.
Blame will take you nowhere.
Absolutely.
Blame's a dead end out. It's not about blame. It's about consciousness. It's
Right.
about clarification. Just seeing it for what it is. Sort of like my dad. My dad beat me when I cried. And I no longer fault him. I no longer blame him at all.
Right.
It's just that's what his dad did, what his dad did, what
Right.
his dad did. And that goes back to a time historically when we were tribal. In tribal life, if you had a child that cried, a neighboring tribe, a scout from the neighboring tribe would hear the cry and locate that tribe. And sometimes the entire tribe would be wiped out. You could not have a child crying
Right.
when you lived in many tribal situations. So there's a good reason why a boy was not allowed to cry.
That's amazing. Wow.
So it's not that I'm blaming Dad.
Yeah.
And any blame, to me, blame is an attempt to escape the pain that you feel.
Right.
Almost invariably, if you're going into blame, you're trying to escape pain. What is that pain you're trying to escape? Either blaming somebody else, your wife, your son, your parent, blaming someone else, or blaming yourself. You're trying to, almost invariably, you're trying to escape some pain. what is that pain? What is it you're suffering? Go into that emotion, go into that feeling. And oftentimes, especially in the early days, you'll need probably some support. A good therapist or whatever you feel is going to work for you. Somebody can help you go into that, help you feel safe enough to more deeply enter the emotion and then begin to unravel what it's constructed of.
Now you want to kind of. I brought this. If you think about it, this all just came full. You notice I'm being rather quiet. Because
Yeah, it's unusual.
It came all full circle for me here, Allan. Our medium friend Maureen.
Mm-hmm.
Maureen and I have had many discussions over the years, and she said, "You're holding yourself back. There's something in your subconscious that is holding you back. And until you get rid of it and let it go, you're not going to be successful."
Yeah.
And, a lot of the things you just said, I try not to blame. I've actually overcome a lot of things. But as a child, I was raised to be responsible. Everybody came to me and said, "Well, you know what? You're the responsible one. You keep an eye on. You do this. You do that. You know what? You sure you want to be a rock musician, Daniel? You need something to fall back on."
Yeah.
And there was always those seeds of doubt that I wasn't going to get what I wanted planted in my head. Not intentionally. It was done out of,
Right, yeah.
love. But, you start to think about it. I never took risks. I never took chances. I never did
Because
the
of that.
thing. Because of that. Because I was afraid that if it blew up in my face, well, maybe you should have listened to mom and dad. That type of thing. And my parents are great people, And I thankfully, I still have both of them today. And,
Beautiful.
God, my dad looks better than me. Plays golf 3 times a week, I
Wow.
mean, he's going to be 78 years old.
Wow.
And but I see now that they've lived in the South now for over a decade, I see that, the things that I no longer hear on a daily basis, and it just kind of, it's enabled me to try different things and just have more of a devil may care attitude about a lot of different things.
Yeah.
I've kind of released that way, but I still cannot put my finger on what you were talking about, on what it is, in here that's holding me back from achieving what it is I want. And until I figure it out, and I got to figure it out quick because this is getting old, But I've been doing my radio show, Rock On Radio. It'll be 9 years in April. And you would think something would be able to go or come out of that. Something for me, voiceover work, or take, all of us to the next level where we could become financially successful at it. But I do it more because it's a love of things, but yet, you feel like you hit a wall and you can't go any further. And then you kind of start doubting yourself again. And I guess it's being able to push that self-doubt away that is the key.
To push what?
Self-doubt.
Push self-doubt out of the way.
Mm-hmm. Or whatever.
I guess I would say what convinces you've not achieved? What convinces you that you've not come to something that's incredibly great?
Well, what I have is incredibly great.
Yeah.
But
That's Art, our engineer. It's like a bull in a china shop.
I never thought I'd meet anyone clumsier than me.
He's in a good running second.
I think we're tied. Oh, I'm sorry, Danny.
I need more space here, man.
that's all right. It's probably a good time to interject. No, it's many people set out to do things,
Yeah.
and they set out to do things and get a job doing things that they enjoy. And if you love what you do, it's not work, is what, you know,
Yeah.
is the popular saying.
Yeah.
All I want to do is love what I do for my job.
And you love the radio work.
I love the radio work. I love to write. I love to play music.
I want to bang on the drum all day.
There you go. See?
And you're doing
I
that.
don't
so,
want to work.
I think I would start with really acknowledging that's fabulous. That's a fabulous level of attainment. And it shows when you're here, and when I've seen you, I've been around you that much, but it shows that you really love what you're doing. You have a genuine caring for the people, and all the people here feel your heart involved with them. You connect with people, and you love it, and you enjoy it. It gives you a lot of satisfaction. So I really would start with
does.
I would really start with acknowledging that as a tremendous level of success.
Many people have said to me over the years, many people, that you don't think you deserve to be successful. Why don't you think you deserve to be successful?
I guess what I'm saying is, where do you get the thought that you're not successful? I guess that's what
No,
I'm
I
asking.
get it. I see what you're saying. Right.
There may be
Have to flip it
there
around.
there may be a carrot there, you know. And I'm not like talking down to you. I hope it doesn't come across that
No,
way.
no, no,
I'm in this. I'm like, I have the same kind of thoughts and feelings. Like, you know, I often feel like, why am I doing so little? I see some of the people who are doing such tremendous work and service, and I look at myself. I do so little. So you know, that's another kind of
Negative thought.
yeah, a downfall. A pitfall is comparing yourselves with other people. You really can only compare yourself with yourself.
With yourself, yeah. That I don't do. Because I wouldn't even know where to start there.
Yeah.
Hold that thought. We do have a caller on the well. Caller on the well. Do you hear me today? I'm telling you, I don't know what's going on.
No,
with
Timmy's
me.
in the well.
You're on the air. Thank you for calling Health and Wellness. Who is this?
Danny Coleman, it's George. I thought I'd call you. I wanted to kind of keep it nice because it's such a positive show, but I heard you had a warlock on the show tonight, so I figured I'd call and just chime in and tell you what a great job you're doing, Danny. You're very positive, and you're making everybody around you very happy. Playing drums, writing, or being on the radio. Everybody loves you, Danny. I just want to let you know.
Aw,
Thanks, George.
That's your
You're the
stalker,
best.
and he found us on the Health and Wellness show now.
That's Danny's
That's
stalker.
beautiful.
Yeah, I know. I'll be on Sunday giving you a hard time, but for tonight, I'm just going to tell you you're doing a good job.
Oh,
Aw, he's showing you some love.
Yeah.
Thank you, George.
You're all right, George. Thank you.
See,
Beautiful,
gone.
George.
He's going.
George? Yeah, he's gone.
Oh,
and
that
for
was
anybody
nice.
who wants to
Look
call
out
in,
Sunday. No.
that was nice. Well,
that
Allan,
was really nice of him, actually,
Well,
because
no,
he just, you
that
know,
was nice.
calls in and really goes for it, and that
Well,
was really nice of him.
Allan, you've got us all
You look in
thinking here. You know,
What's that?
you have us all thinking about ourselves and stuff. So what you did, you managed to make us all look into ourselves during the show. We're all looking in to our own.
He changed
things.
George's perspective of
He
Danny.
even changed George's perspective of that.
amazing.
But, no, but you have Danny looking inward. You have me looking inward, and we're holding on to your words. It's a beautiful thing. It's right. I mean, and I agree with what Danny says about achieving more things. I think that it's money based. Why, if you're so good, how come you don't have $1 million in your pocket? I mean, I think that way about myself. Is it money based for you, Danny, or what? It's like, why can't you just have your house in Malibu now and a couple of swimming pools? Or
It's a big catch-22 there, because I always thought to myself, all I want to do is make a living at something I love, and I don't need $1 million. I just want to be able to pay my bills and have enough money to go out to dinner once a week. You know what I mean?
Where you taking
And I've been told, well, why are you shooting so small? You got to shoot higher.
Yeah.
And if that's what you get, then great. But you don't just say, oh, I'll settle for this.
Right.
But then on the other hand, if you go with, I made $1 million. I've already made $1 million in my life. I was at UPS for 20 years. I made between $50,000 and $80,000 for the 20 years I worked there. Add it up. That's a mill.
yeah.
You know? So and of course, it goes to various places. But as far as what was the original question? 'Cause it
It's
struck
just
me.
money based. You say that you don't feel that you're completely successful. You begin to look at it. Yeah, I am happy what I do. Alan basically is having you look into yourself that
I'm
way.
actually very happy.
Yeah.
I just, money can't buy you happiness is the
Right.
famous thing, but I'll tell you what, it relieves a lot of stress.
Well, it does.
Yeah.
Well, didn't Solomon say that? I mean, not everybody says money solves all things. But that's general. Like it takes the bills away.
Richie, I went to rob Peter to pay Paul, and Peter had a gun this time.
Yeah,
so it can become very taxing on you, and then you start to question yourself: is what I'm doing, worth it? Is anybody even listening anymore? Is
Well,
anybody do this?
isn't that the reason why with recovery and stuff, Art? Isn't that the reason why, or one of the reasons why people actually
relapse?
Yeah, and just do things to begin with to sedate themselves because they feel the self-worth is gone. Or
Well, don't we all try to escape from something
Yeah,
at
yeah.
some point?
I
in
did
time,
that
right?
Saturday.
And
I had a
mean,
few too many beers, Alan.
when we start to deal with kids like that too, the question is, are you masking some type of pain, or are you party boy, your girl, or what I mean, whatever's appropriate.
what is it? It's either peers doing the same thing, trying to fit in, or
I remember
masking
what it was now.
Well, it's either peer pressure, you know what I mean, to that age, or you were injured and you were prescribed opioids, and it took its bite on you, and one thing led to another. I mean, it happens.
Yeah, yeah.
So it's a little bit of both.
Well, I remember what it was now. Yes, it gets frustrating to have done this for 9 years.
Yeah.
See, because in my case, Alan, in my case, my whole life, I used to feel that I was never good enough. I always came in third place, second place. I told the story one time of I got my name in the paper when I was 12 because I threw a 6-hitter in Little League, and we won the game like 7-1.
Wow.
And I pitched all 6 innings, and my dad, who at the time used to smoke cigarettes pretty heavy, said to me, "Well, how many did you walk?" And I said, "Well, I had 5 walks." And he said, "You got to get them walks down." He didn't say, "Well, good that you won," or "Great." He said, "You got to get them walks down." And I know he said it because he was trying to help me and say, "You know what? You'd be a complete pitcher if and try to get me to work harder."
Yeah. That's the old world thinking.
But exactly,
Yeah.
and
That's exactly.
but you
Yeah,
see,
exactly.
I was 12, Alan.
Right.
Okay, I'm close to 55 years old now, and
Almost middle age.
yeah, if you live to 110. But no, but it stuck with me, and it's
Yeah,
that
yeah.
kind of. I've been in rock bands where I was told, we hate to let you go, but we got to do it because the record company thinks I got to put a whole new band together. So I was good enough to get you to that point, but not good enough to stay. So that starts wearing on your psyche. And, a lot of people were just like water off a duck. And that's how I've started to become. I've really hit the, I'm out of what's to give at this point. And I figure I'm just going to keep plugging along. And if something happens, it happens. If it doesn't.
Alan's really looking at you.
No,
Yeah.
I would rather have.
He's gonna say something. You gotta.
I would rather have 1,000 failures than one regret.
Wow.
But-
Beautiful.
That's just me. I'm going to drink water now.
Well, again, Alan's opening us up. That's right. I mean, I didn't expect to feel these feelings, and you're feeling these things. You're looking inside yourself. So, thank you, Alan, for providing this.
So self-reflection is a unique, as far as I can tell, it's a unique feature of the human being. I would say like I said, as far as I can tell, it's unique to the human. My dog, since the last show we had, my dog passed away. But, I told the dog every day his ears are just too long. His nose is too big. And he was like, he's talking to me, he's talking to me. He never, for one instant, reflected on how his ears and nose looked.
Right.
He was just like, oh, Daddy's talking to me, I'm happy. So we have this incredible capacity to self-reflect. I would say what's unfortunate about it is we go into the identity and go into a spin. And almost every living human, I'm sure there's exceptions, has some version of what you're talking about, of I'm not good enough. Almost everybody has that. Now here's my explanation of why that's valid or why it's so ubiquitous for the human. We came from spirit, and we have forgotten where we came from. Our true nature is spirit, our true nature is free, our true nature is beauty, love, joy, peace. Those are the qualities of our true nature. And it's a much higher frequency than the frequency of inhabiting the brain consciousness of a human being. And because that frequency of human consciousness is so lower, there's a dissonance about it. So we come from a higher frequency to a lower frequency, and that dissonance creates something deep in our psyche that sort of says something's wrong here, something's off, something's not right. It's that dissonance between the frequency. And then when we start to develop an identity and a conceptual mind, that thought comes in, something's wrong with me. It's not the truth is, it's not that something's wrong with me. It's simply that I've taken on an identity, a temporary vehicle to experience what it's like to be a human. And that thought structure has developed some version of that, something's wrong with me. Now, it can also be something's wrong with the world. Something's wrong with me or something's wrong with the world is the result. So then when you encounter some teaching that gives you ammunition for that, or your dad said that to you, a parent, someone that you really trust says something like that to you, that deepens it. Then it starts to be anchored in your system. And it becomes an underlying reality, and we're constantly trying to overcome that through achievement, through money, through fame, through whatever, all different means. We try to overcome that feeling, but the feeling is in our system. It's held in our system. It's anchored in our body as a thought structure or series of thought structures. It's anchored emotionally in our body. And until we go beyond that into the pure nature of ourself, it's still going to operate. It's still going to drive us unconsciously. And the result will be, no matter how many millions, now billions, now we're trying to become a trillionaire, to overcome that feeling. Walking around with it in your body, trying to overcome it with your bank account, trying to overcome it with whatever, some kind of achievement in the outer world. It's not going to work. It'll never relieve that. If you take the self-reflection capacity of the human and you go deeper than that, you'll come to directly experience your original nature. Once you touch your original nature ever so briefly, that will start to reorganize everything. So that's why there's practices of meditation, various forms of self-reflection. I teach a particular form, which has a whole history of how it developed. It's similar to what's called self-inquiry, but it's direct self-reflection. It does involve questioning, and it just involves a simple, innocent looking, a pointed looking, which I practice and teach as part of the work I do. So there's two parts of what I do. One part is releasing or reorganizing the emotions that underlie it, and the other part is strengthening this looking. So there's kind of two parallel tracks that do seem to take us to a greater level of self-generated fulfillment. And when you start to generate that sense of well-being from within, from the basis of the simple fact that I exist, then you don't need the circumstances to validate it.
This is beautiful.
That's correct.
Yes.
Beautiful.
No, I mean, it's,
Yeah.
you know, in my high school yearbook, somebody from the yearbook committee, unbeknownst to me, when I got my yearbook 3 days before we graduated or whatever, and I opened it up and I saw my picture, it had, you know, high school band, 4 years, soccer. Somebody put underneath college a possibility, and then underneath put wants to be a rock star. I don't know who did that. You know, and to this day, I don't know who did that, who on that yearbook. I don't even know who was on the yearbook committee. But, you know, I look now, and I look at the people I talk to. I may not be a rock star. I hang out with rock stars. You know, I've been backstage with rock stars. I've interviewed some of the Rock and Roll Hall of Famers. I've done gigs with Rock and Roll Hall of Famers.
Wow.
So I haven't performed in front of 20, 30, 300,000 people, but I have performed. And my radio show, I started because when I was a 16-year-old kid, or 15-year-old kid, I heard myself on the radio for the first time. Performing. I heard the music from my band on the radio.
Wow.
And I got the chills. So when my back gave out in 2009 and I had to reinvent myself, that's why I started the radio show. I said, you know what? If I can give another musician the thrill I had.
Right.
So, you know, so I'm very successful at helping musicians gain exposure through my writing, through my radio programs, through, you know, through this program, through the YouTube show that we do.
That's great.
And I'm happy. I'm very happy.
Yeah.
I just, you know, I never get defeated. I get more determined.
You never get what? No, defeated.
I don't get defeated. I get
That's great.
determined.
That's great.
But I do get frustrated.
Uh-huh.
And I think it's somewhere in that frustration level where the answer lies.
Well,
How do you put it out of your head? You know, because even you, Mayor, I mean, look,
I know.
you've got this DVD here, right? This great DVD, right? And you're working hard to get it out there.
Yes. Yeah.
And you're having success. But doesn't it frustrate you sometimes that it may or may not be coming as quick as you wish?
Yeah, and just what you said, it makes me more determined. You know, do I get frustrated? Yes. Because sometimes, you know, where I get the frustration, and I don't know if this is you, you're so busy helping everybody else.
Oh, yeah.
But then once you're asking for help for yourself, that's kind of how you find out who's really around you that really wants to help you. Because you're reaching out and you're not a person that always reaches out, you know. And I know some people that always have their hands out, you know, and you're helping them. And then when you're actually saying, you know, even to parents, families, you know, I need help, but I need it now. And you've never done that before. And it's the same case what you're saying with this DVD. Like I'm saying, hey, here it is. In my mind, everybody should have one in their homes. That's in my mind, you know, because I know that the love and care that went into that to create that DVD from inception. And
that's helping people as well, the DVD.
Well, yes. And, you know, we worked on it together and it was from inception. It was done with like love and caring. And I know what I want people to feel when they hear that. But it's like, well, how do you get it out there? You know, like let everybody have it. And all I could do is keep talking about it and keep talking, because it is a passion of mine, like how well your writing is. And what you might not realize here, like we're amongst all writers. You have your column, right? I have the book. You have 2 books, Allan. I know Robert writes.
3 books now.
Now it's 3. Okay,
Well, one's a translation, yeah.
okay, perfect. And we'll talk about that. But then, Robert, you write poetry, and Ryche, you're a songwriter. That and Art, you edit and put all the shows together, and even do your own indie show now. So we all are creators. It's like like-minded people around one thing, you know. And I think that's what I was saying before. Like when you're around like-minded people that want the same things, like you're saying, you're frustrated. Okay, so how can we all help each other to get to that next level? But then every time I think that, I have to look within to say, why am I stopping myself? You know, and I'm just like you, trying to figure out that answer.
Well, obviously, I should become an
Alan,
international
and
foot
we have
model.
another one that needs your help.
No, that.
Well,
That's
I think I want to go back. We're running out of time
Yeah.
here. I wish we had a few more hours, but I want to go back to something Danny said about the frustration, and then at least in the way he's interpreting it, he had to downshift from being a widely renowned musician to supporting other musicians. One of the it could be the biggest issue we humans deal with is the illusion of separation. And if you, as you do the work and you discharge the impact of the illusion of separation, and you help another musician, if he becomes famous or some degree of fame, it doesn't belong to, it's not him versus me or me versus, it's us. So like sometimes I sit and watch, I love these little videos of, what do they call them? And you see these kids do these phenomenal things with skateboards and bicycles. I saw a kid climbing rocks with a bicycle. And I look at it and I'm thinking, wow, look at what we are doing. Knowing that kid could not be on that bicycle jumping over those rocks if I didn't exist. It's we, it's not him or me, it's us. So the process that I work with in terms of the inner journey to self, when you enter the domain of your true nature, you enter the domain of true we. It's a we, it's a oneness, there's a field of oneness that's deep inside prior to that identity that develops as we go along. When you enter that, then you are, all success is your success. Of course, all failure is your failure too. All pain is your pain, all joy is your pain, because you've entered the domain of oneness. You begin to become one with all life. So when the bird is not, when you listen to the bird sing, you're not hearing the bird sing to you, you're listening to singing. You are a participant in the bird song. You're not simply an observer. You're part of the bird song. So wherever there's fame, that fame belongs to you. It's part of you. It's part of your nature. If anyone's experiencing, along with the pain. So things really do start to shift when you enter that domain, when you enter that field of true oneness.
Well, that is really fantastic. And, you know, Allan, because we are running out of time here, I could sit here and listen to you for hours upon hours. I can't believe that we did a 90-minute show and it's almost gone. If people wanted to contact you and work with you and things like that, how do we find you?
Well, the website is nothingother.com. Nothing, N-O-T-H-I-N-G, other, O-T-H-E-R, one word, nothingother.com. I think all my information should be there, and the email is Allan, A-L-L-A-N, @nothingother.com. So
And they could just reach out to you
Sure,
and express everything.
sure, it's easy.
It's easy to find you.
Yeah, it's easy.
You might have a bunch of us lined up at your door, just so you know.
Okay. I do have some people that come to my home, and I do most of the work I do online. Various video conferencing, Skype, FaceTime.
Yeah.
Those kinds of things.
Well, that's fantastic. Well, I want to thank you for coming on the show again.
Thank you,
Um,
Maryann.
Yeah, fantastic.
I mean, it's fantastic, and you leave these gems of information that we're all taking in. And last time you were on the show, you said very meaningful things. I go back, I listen to the show. So thank you from the bottom of my heart. I mean, just your wisdom, and you could feel the love radiating off of you to all of us as you're discussing all of this. And it's just an incredible feeling. I wish people at home could feel what I'm feeling just sitting right next to you. So thank you so much for coming on the show.
Definitely my joy and my privilege.
Thank
We
you.
couldn't get a word out of Robert. over
No,
there.
he's been very
Well,
quiet.
he's in awe too, I think. So
I think he's in awe too. But Robert, thank you for being here and eating Thin Mints and having your Pellegrino water. So I'm very thankful that you were here, but mostly supporting us. So thank you so much
thank
for
you so
doing
much.
that.
Your presence here
You
know-
means everything.
I did not intend for all of that to come out of me this evening.
It was meant to.
Yeah, I know.
That's why we're
I
all
know.
sitting quiet,
It was
letting
great.
it,
When
because
When we're
we
done,
get
you
it.
can lay on the sofa.
I know.
now and talk to me. That's good.
I really appreciate your vulnerability and your honesty.
Yeah.
Beautiful.
And being very candid.
Yeah, because I mean, I didn't want to turn the show into about me more than you. But
Well,
from
what
the
you
time we
did-
sat down, we hit that.
But what
Right.
you're dealing
Nerve.
with, everything you're talking about, is something that all of us deal with.
Yes.
It's not, you know, you may think it's your issue, but it's a lot of it, most of it, almost all of it, I would
Well,
say, is
Yeah,
It's-
that's why I wanted to get it out there.
this material we deal with as being human. Luckily, dogs don't have to deal with it. They just have to put up with us humans. that are
Dogs
good.
have very short memory span.
Yes. They
No,
do.
you go and you walk in the house, you can yell at the dog, "Shut up, get out of the way!" And then 2 seconds later, it's back over with its tail.
Oh,
wagging.
no, of course.
Lock your dog and your wife in the trunk for 5 minutes, and then see which one's glad to see you.
That's
Yeah.
right.
That's why they have dog houses in the backyard.
Which one you let out?
No comment. No, but we also want to know that if you'd love to become a sponsor of Health and Wellness, and we would love you to do that, Danny, can you help us out with that?
What?
See, I was just seeing if he was paying attention. I wasn't sure if you were or you
How do you
weren't.
want me to help you out? You mean by making a donation to City of Angels?
Well,
Is
tell
that
them
where
how-
we're going with that, or writing a check to us personally?
Well, I'd like to check personally, but we're here for the City of Angels.
Oh, that's right. Okay. Yeah, go to cityofangelsnj.org. Cityofangelsnj.org. Make a donation. Greatest nation in the world, donation. And make sure in the comments you put Health and Wellness Hour or Rock On Radio
Or what's next?
Or wealth and hellness.
or Wealth and Wellness.
He's still stuck on that. I was so bad at that. I can't believe I did that.
We'll accept that as an answer.
And we'll make you a sponsor for 30 days.
Yeah, and I think that's fair. And our next show will be Wednesday, March 21st at 8 p.m. And how many of you, by a show of hands in this room, are afraid of a dentist or dental work? Anybody? Raise your hands.
I dated a dentist.
Okay, well, then you'll love this show. There you are. For a whole nother reason. But we will have Dr. Dean Chincherik and Dr. Devin Berry from the Art of Dentistry and Spa from Somerset, New Jersey, coming on the show, discussing anything dental plus holistic ways for dental work, and to see how that can intertwine from even addiction and recovery, all the things that happen
Yes, I'm
in
going to want to
dentist's
know about
office.
their prescribing practices.
Well, now they heard you, so now I know. So, but we would love you to join us and call us for that show as well. But in the meantime, like I said, Allan, thank you so much for coming back. Love to have you back again. I'm sure that's what we're going to be hearing again. Please bring this gentleman
Sure.
back. So thank you
I'd
so
love to
much.
Come again. Not when the dentists are here, but
No,
no,
but
I have a great dentist. I love the guy.
yeah,
He takes
we're very excited to have them as our special guest next month. And I think that's all we have time for now. So thank you so much for opening up to us, Danny. And thank you, Allan, for everybody.
Thank you, Alan. Thank you, Robert.
Yes. Thank you,
Oh,
Rich.
every
Thank
single
you, Art.
director.
Thank you, Danny, as always. And until next time on Health and Wellness, be well.